Chapter 12 The Secret of the Title. The Greenskins are rushing up again. Fire. Mortar Squad, come with me. Griffin Riders. Lift off. We need Griffin Riders. In the afternoon, loud shouts like muffled thunder, accompanied by low gunshots and the sound of explosives, exploded on a hill in the southeast of Hillsbrad Hills. This is a dwarf castle. It's called Dangarok. Its orientation is complementary to the city gate of Thoradin's Wall, which is several kilometers away, and it is an absolutely strategic location. If the Wall of Thoradin is a heavy shield that the orcs cannot penetrate, then the castle of Dangarok is the warhammer that shatters the orcs' war ambitions in front of the heavy shield. If the orcs who crossed the sea could not occupy this place, they would not be able to achieve full control over the eastern part of the Hillsbrad Hills, let alone open up the battlefields of the hills and highlands. The inability to get through the two battlefields meant that the two clans, the Bloodring and the Dragonmaw, who fought fiercely with the kingdom of Stromgard in the earthy highlands, would not receive the support of other clans. This has greatly dispersed the power of the orc tribe, so the dwarf castle in front of them has become a thorn in the eyes of the orcs who have just established a foothold in the northern border, a thorn in their flesh. Boom! The cannonballs fired from the castle roared and crashed on the ground under the hill. The 3 or 4 orc warriors who couldn't dodge were brought into a pot, and the bursting blood was sprayed out, and the smell of barbecued meat made this place like hell. But the more this happened, the stronger the fury of the orcs, the redder their eyes and the louder their roars. However, this look may frighten humans, but it definitely can't frighten the dwarfs with big nerves. Those short muscular sticks, who are less than 1.3 meters tall, also uttered battle roars one after another. It seems that it is to compete with the orcs to see who has the loudest voice. The battle for the siege of Dangarok has been going on for the 5th day, and the orcs paid a heavy price, breaking the 3 gates of the castle and approaching the inner layer of the castle. But the dwarves never admit defeat. They drove 6 steam tanks to the gate of the castle, removed the wheels, and blocked the orcs' attempt to invade the castle in this way. On the edge of the 2nd floor of the castle, several mortar squads were firing frantically. There were also heavily armored, bearded, bronze-bearded dwarves with shields and warhammers lining the ground, protecting the musketeers and mountain rangers in the back. The orcs rushed up in skirmish lines, and were repelled by a torrential rain of bullets and cannonballs, leaving several corpses with each impact. There is also a support of Griffin Knights of the Wildhammer dwarves in the sky. From time to time, a warhammer shining with thunderlight fell from the sky, killing a certain orc team leader with precision, leaving less than 300 dwarves left. But if you want to gnaw this last bone, the orcs have to pay at least the same price of 300 people. This small hill, in these 10 days, has become the meat grinder of Hillsbrad Hills. Neither side was willing to take a step back. The victory or defeat here will also directly affect the battle situation in Arthy Highlands. These dwarfs are amazing. Hiding on the edge of the battlefield and walking in the shadows, Blake Shaw was lying behind a big tree that was interrupted by cannonballs, watching the fight between dwarves and orcs just like watching an exciting war movie. Although he had no special feelings for these rude and violent dwarves in front of him, Blake had to admit that these dwarves were real cows. If the same number of humans were here, they would definitely not be able to last for 5 days in the face of an attack like the orcs. But the dwarves were in trouble. Their attention was all attracted by the orcs who were charging forward on the frontal battlefield, and they ignored the rear. Even if Black hides on the edge, he can perceive the existence of similars from the shadow affinity that has just been strengthened to the intermediate level. The orcs sent assassins. Like Blake, they walked in the shadows, bypassing the frontal battlefield of the dwarves and touching the castle of Dangarok. It's obvious what these idiots are going to do. If the frontal attack could not be carried out, the orc leader obviously used a crooked mind. They may have no longer wanted to occupy Dangarok, but chose to destroy it directly. Swish. The sharp poison dagger turned flexibly in Black's left hand and was held by the backhand. The well-balanced Werther's leg was also held in his right hand. He lowered his body, quickened his pace, and touched the dwarf's castle. Although Hela asked for 50 warrior souls, regardless of race, orcs and dwarves were fine, but Black always had his own likes and dislikes. He is more willing to help the dwarves of Dangarek than the greenskin orcs. Although he is already a pirate of good and evil, he still has to be worthy of his race. After all, he still bears the surname of Proudmoore. What's more, the death of Drake's prince was also concocted by the orcs. This is a personal grudge. Do not. In the depths of Dangarok Castle, where the dwarf's ammunition depot is located, a female dwarf quartermaster armed with a harpoon was stabbed in the back of the heart by an orc assassin who jumped out of the shadows. Several companions had fallen by her side. These short men have strong skin and strong vitality. They have not died in such a sneak attack, but fell to the ground and were seriously injured. She looked at the 4 orc assassins in desperation, and each lit their torches to detonate the ammunition depot. The explosives stored here are not enough to destroy the entire castle, but once the ammunition depot is destroyed, the fire defense of the dwarves will immediately collapse. Without the firepower advantage, the dwarves, who were also very tired after fighting for 5 days, were expected to be severely cleaned up by the orcs. The most important thing is that there are some wounded soldiers resting above the ammunition depot. For the Shadow Council. These 4 orc assassins were obviously dead men. They broke through and didn't even think about going back. They roared wildly and lit the fire in their hands. Buzz. At the critical moment, the female dwarf had closed her eyes in despair, but with the surge of magic power, the garment of shadow suddenly shattered, and a muffled sound like a sea tide sounded in this place far from the coast. The 4 orc assassins were instantly knocked down by the heavy punch of magic power, and even the flames in their hands were extinguished at the same time. The skeletal man jumping out of the shadows picked up Werther's leg and slammed a hammer on the temple of the nearest orc, hitting a heavy object, and it really felt more comfortable than hitting those soft-skinned snakes. And the crisp bone-cracking sound also sounds so pleasant. The short sword in the other hand stabbed fiercely to the other side, and between the gaps, it inserted into the eye socket of the beastman's peer. Without drawing the sword, let the guy fall. Don't look at it. He is dead. The Blood Ring clan's poison has fallen into Black's hands until now, and it has not been missed. Even the big Naga can be poisoned to death, and the mere orcs have no natural resistance and can't stand it. And the already desperate female dwarf looked surprised when she saw the desperate situation. She stared at the emaciated human who jumped out in a daze and killed the 2 orcs with a knife. Seeing that the remaining 2 assassins had woken up, he became anxious, and for a while, he jumped up from the ground without caring about his pierced back. This female dwarf's brass-colored skin suddenly became as hard as a stone, forcibly pressing the wound to lose blood, picked up her harpoon, and stabbed it upwards. Because of the height difference between the dwarves and the orcs, the harpoon stabbed into the awkward position of the orc assassin from behind. Poked directly from the chrysanthemum. How powerful are dwarves! It was desperate time again, so Blake killed the 2 orcs. The moment he turned back, he saw a distorted orc's face, his eyes were wide, and his eyes were full of painful bloodshots. It's miserable. He swiped down and commented in his mood. Turning around, he raised Werther's legs and held them with both hands, like knocking an egg, from top to bottom, and slammed the last orc assassin on the forehead. Boom! Amidst the muffled sound, a dazed look flashed in the guy's eyes, and his movements swayed, as expected of an orc, and under such a heavy blow, he tried to hand the dagger to Black. But the rib-boned man was obviously quicker. Holding Werther's leg in his hand, he used his instinctive military swordsmanship to strike a slash forward, knocking the last assassin to the ground. Then, there was a weak scream behind him, and there was the sound of heavy objects flying. Blake turned around and grabbed it. He sank and found that it was a dwarf double-barreled shotgun. Chic styling. The black bell mouth is still carved, and it has been loaded, so the muzzle droops down and touches the eye of the orc assassin. Then, pull the trigger. Boom. In the low sound of gunshots, the orc corpse he stepped on twitched, like a watermelon bursting, red and white sprinkled everywhere. Thank you, human warrior. My name is Talma Stormpike. Thank you for saving my life, and my brothers and sisters in this castle. The wounded female dwarf leaned on her body with a harpoon and escaped from the dwarf's stone statue state. She said weakly but solemnly, "These hateful greenskins. It's not enough that they ruined our cause Modin. They want to ruin our home again, unforgivable. The orcs will not give up the attack. You have been defending against the impossible." Blake was also welcome. He put the heavy dwarf shotgun aside and said to the female dwarf quartermaster in front of him, "I want to assassinate the leader of this orc clan, but I need your griffin knights to help me." Who said that? Although the female dwarf was injured, she still had a natural dwarf temper. When she heard Blake's hoarse words, she immediately shook her braid in dissatisfaction and said, "We Stormpike are not afraid of greenskins. We can stay in the castle until we die of old age." "I doubt that." Blake struck mercilessly. "If it wasn't for me passing by chance, you would have been finished just now. In short, for the sake of my helping you, you should try it. It doesn't matter if I can do it or not. I need a sturdy shackle right now, a grappling hook is best, and a set of lightweight leather armor that fits my size, and finally I want this gun in your hand." Black squatted down, scoured the 4 orc corpses, and at the same time threw their souls into the spirit lamp, pointed to the shotgun beside him, and said, "It's powerful, but the barrel is too long for me to use it, so cut it down to make it a firearm style." I can't be the master," the dwarf said aloud. "I'll go to Captain Darren right now. He has the authority to mobilize the Griffin Knight and the leather armor you want. It's in the back box. You can find it yourself." After speaking, the female dwarf grabbed a bottle of red healing potion from her rucksack, filled it with one mouthful, and limped out of the bloody ammunition depot, leaning on a harpoon. After she left, Blake touched his forehead, he glanced at the character card, and was surprised to find that there was a strange new title in the title column. Orc Killer? The new pirate touched his chin, and he focused his attention on the title, and a small change occurred, Orc Killer, wearing. Then all the details of killing orcs in his mind appeared in his mind. The appearance of every picture made him understand the body structure and fatalities of the orc more deeply. After a few seconds of gazing around, Blake slapped his forehead. Now that he knew what these ignorant titles represented, he eagerly tried to wear the other 2 titles. However, neither Prince of Kultiras nor Spirit Hunter can be worn. The former is estimated to be related to the hate seal in the talent. And the latter. Probably because he has not completed the first trial given to him by Hela, the god of death. But I killed so many murlocs, why isn't there a murloc killer? The rib man touched the little fish man who was poking his head in his arms. After a few seconds, he came to a conclusion that should be correct. Well, it's probably because the murlocs are too weak.